sleepless nights, mind racing, forgetting deadlines, running behind, heart palpitations, stress. All of these are signs that too many of us are living with daily. All of these are signs of burnout. Burnout is real, and it is something that too many of us are suffering with. Today, we're talking about burnout recovery because when it happens, you need to know how to find your way out. And we have someone who has a personal journey story that is going to take you from living on the hamster wheel to finding your way off it. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Clarity in Action. Welcome to Clarity in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Clarity in Action. This episode is going to be really powerful, and it's one that is near and dear to me because we are talking about the importance of taking care of ourselves. I know I have struggled with my own bouts of burnout and learning the lesson many times the hard way that self-care is not selfish. And to help me with this conversation, I have my new friend, Michael, here, and we are going to be diving into this from a different and unique perspective. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Clara. Great to be here.
You know, I'm really excited to have you here because I've talked about burnout a lot, and most of my conversations, I would say, in fact, all of my conversations have been with women. So I'm really excited to bring in and get a male perspective on the importance of paying attention to this. And before we dive in, I would love to start the conversation by asking, what was your moment of clarity where you learned the importance of taking care of yourself?
Yeah, there's probably several I could go with here, but I'm going to go back to 2008. I was working as an EMT in the hospital, and it was just before I moved from patient care into administration. And it's also the time where I learned just to let go and stop trying to manage my career because I was so focused managing it. When's that next promotion? When's that next raise coming? And I just let all that go. And I started to focus on building relationships with the right people. We have so many people that we come in contact with through our career. So I started focusing on building those relationships and nourishing those relationships and being a positive influence in my personal and professional life for those people that are around me. So I really stopped focusing on money and titles, and I started focusing on how I could be of value to others around me, my family, my friends, my colleagues, my team members. And, that was a really big moment for me. And I mean, from there, I literally 2 months later moved from Orlando to Tampa. I moved from bedside to administration, and things just really started to roll for me.
Yeah. And, I think you mentioned these things of going after the title, going after the money. I think that this is something that is ingrained in us from a young age. And to be honest, there's a certain level of truth because, making money, we have to pay the bills and do those things, but we can get caught in that cycle of living on the hamster wheel. And I know for me, the wake up call generally came in the area of health issues, not just a deterioration of relationships. Were there any of those, moments for you? What were some of the negative things that were happening for you that really woke you up and said, not I'm going to pay attention to these, but I have to pay attention?
Well, in the 90s, I battled with depression and battled with suicide. So I already was in tune with my body. But like you said, I was so focused on that title and money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we get so caught up in it, we stop listening to our bodies. And listen, we're the only ones who can hear what our body's telling us. Nobody else can. So for me, it was blindness. It was 2 heart attacks. And of course, last year I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
But and I will say, first of all, burnout's a real thing. There's some people out there that will challenge burnout. It's a real thing. And most of the time it's self-inflicted because we're not listening to our bodies. So the heart attacks on me, the blindness on me because it was a blood clot that instead of going to my brain went to my eye and caused blindness.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually some of that vision came back. So what I want you to take away from that is listen to what your body's telling you and stop focusing on managing your career. I never, and I can truly say this, I never asked for a promotion. I never asked for a raise. I wanted my actions and my work ethic to speak for me. And it did. And it took me, beyond what I thought that I could ever do.
Yeah. And I want to break that down a little bit because, you want your work ethic, your actions to speak for you. But what if your actions and your work ethic are all based around working hard, giving your blood, sweat, and tears? It's a slippery slope because it can open doors. People used to love it and be like, oh my God, we can give you anything and you're going to get it done. You're a workhorse. But that was also slowly killing me. And, how can you reconcile that?
So I have 4 pillars that I live my life by. They all start with R because I'm a simple guy and I'm not a very smart guy. So I need them to be easy for me. Rest, refocus, recharge, and recommit. Okay. Rest, refocus, recharge, and recommit. Rest, and I'm not talking about sleep. Rest means you need to hit the pause button. You need to stop. So when you hear your body telling you, I can't go on, I need a break, you need to give it a break. So just walk away. For me, I'll tell you what I do. For me, and I work from home most of the time now, I walk outside. I walk away from whatever's causing that stress and I go outside and I get away with just myself. That allows me to refocus. That's that mindset shift. Mindset is key. So when you go from rest to refocus, so get away with your thoughts. Make sure you refocus on something other than causing that stress and that anxiety, and then begin to recharge. For some people, that's walk. For some people, that's read. For some people, that's pray. That's Bible. That's hobbies. Whatever that is for you, you need to get away with that. And sometimes it just takes a minute. Listen, sometimes I'll go out and I'll do 10 laps in my driveway. I don't get very far, but for my mind and my refocus, it does a lot for me. And then I recommit. And in order to recommit, something needs to change before you put yourself back in that situation. For me, and what I've started to do is I put blocks of time on my calendar where it's just me. Nobody. I use the tools for people to self-schedule, but there are times where no one can schedule time with me because that's my time.
Yeah.
So make sure you're doing that.
So important. You brought this up earlier. You said, burnout's a real thing, and some people don't believe it is. In my own personal journey and studying and speaking on burnout, it's a $2 billion industry, meaning companies are losing a lot of money from lost wages, turnover, illnesses that they have to cover with healthcare. So scientifically it is. Why do you think people still are not listening?
Because when people listen, when people start to focus on themselves, they think it's selfish, or sometimes people will see it as a sign of weakness. And as leaders, we are charged with focusing on the mission and focusing on our team. I got caught up in that. Organizations set a strategic vision, and my job as a leader is to deliver and execute on that vision. In order to do that, I have to focus on my team and make sure my team's producing. And slowly over time, I lose focus on myself. But when my cup is empty, guess what? I can't give you anything. I can give you zero. I can do zero for executing on that vision. So it's not selfish and it's not weak. I'm here to tell you, when you focus on yourself, it's the most selfless thing you can do, because then it allows you to be a better leader. It allows you to be a role model for your team. It allows you to build a stronger team. It allows you to be much more productive. When you just make those small little tweaks and you put that time on your schedule for you, man, it does wonders for you. Right. I never did it. If there was white space on my calendar, I had to fill it up because that's how I was taught.
Right.
Now I don't do that.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love that you brought this from the perspective of leadership. And, we really have to make sure that we are modeling the behavior, because you can sit here and you can have a company vision that says, oh, we take care of our employees, we do all these things. But if the leader isn't doing these things, their employees, their team is not. And I think a lot of people don't take these out of fear. I remember I was working for a company. This was when I was in the corporate world. And it was one of the best things that I think our company did. They came to us and they said, listen, we are taking PTO off the table. You need a day off, you take a day off. We're going to assume that we're all adults here and you're not going to abuse it. Because we know you sometimes take work home with you, you work on the weekends, you take calls. So you know what? We're not going to ask you to turn in and to ask for vacation time. You need a day off, you get your coverage, we're going to trust. And having that trust and that knowledge of being like, wow, they understand it. It gave us the freedom to show up better, and nobody ever abused it, and doing that. And I think it sent a really strong message that we were important, and, giving us that freedom, because I've seen so many leaders that say these things, but then somebody isn't around. They're like, well, where's so-and-so? Oh, they left early. And I hear it all the time where a leader, they're even kind of joking, and they'll be like, somebody will leave at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Oh, half day, huh? Well, what do you think that does to the employee? Do you think they're ever going to do something like that again? Now they're never going to do it. And we have to be careful as leaders and start to not only say these things, but also make sure we're leading with the same actions behind it.
Yeah, because it is our job as leaders to make sure that we are caring for our employees. And I like what you just said, because that shows that the company cares for you. That shows that the company's prioritizing you over the bottom line. Because it's and listen, companies have to make money, but I used to tell my employees that if work is the most important thing in your life, we got to have a conversation, because you're not going to be able to sustain that for very long. Right. You're going to burn out.
Exactly. And I think as leaders, paying more attention to our people. So, it's not always necessarily the CEO if they have an employee, coverage of 5,000 employees, but the department heads, who's ever the immediate supervisor, should be checking in and being like, listen, you haven't taken your vacation days. You haven't taken time off, and you need to go and do this. And, things need to get done, but not at the cost of the employees, because it will eventually catch up to them.
That's right. I mean, I can sit here and ask you, when you were in the corporate world as a leader, how many times did you actually take a vacation? I can tell you for 12 years, I had a 12-year stretch where, I may have been at a destination with my family, but I was still checking email. I was still on the phone, still taking calls, still taking meetings. So you have to take that time, because if you don't get that time, then you're not going to be able to recharge, and you're going to come right back to work. You never got a break. And you're not going to be able to sustain it.
Exactly. I remember I was coaching one of my people, and her business, we were reviewing her business year over year, and her business was up about 73%. And I remember asking her, what was it that you did different? And she even said, I finally took vacation. She's like, I took a long weekend every quarter, and then I did take 2 1-week vacations, and I truly disconnected. She's like, I came back, I felt re-energized, recharged. She's like, I wanted to come back. I felt more creative. Yep. And I think that we don't think that these vacations, they do that. They replenish us. And, as parents, we go to our kids and we tell our kids, go take a nap, go rest. Oh, you have bedtime, go to bed. And then we become adults. We don't have a bedtime. We don't it's like it all goes out the window. And we have to care for ourselves so that, we can really get these things done.
You're right. I mean, like for instance, now, I'm up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock each day, and I'm not checking email. When I was still in the corporate world, first thing I did, what's the first thing? You pick up your phone, check your email. Immediately your day's ruined, because you're already trying to focus on problems and resolving them. And your cup's already empty. So I take 4:30 to 5. I'm exercising, I'm taking time, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading, doing my praying, my meditation. And then, and only then, do I come and I start checking email and seeing what are going to be my problems, my concerns today. What does my day look like? Because when you don't do that, your cup's already empty, and it's hard to get through the day, because you didn't take the time to focus yourself and prepare yourself for whatever's going to come your way.
Yeah. So I want to take a little spin, and I do want to talk about this from a male perspective, even though this podcast reaches all genders. Being that I'm coming from a female perspective, and again, my last book was all about the working mom. And I think as women, we have been talking about this for years and all the plates that we have spinning as moms and running businesses. And I think the men have been a little bit left out. And I would love to get your perspective on that, because I think there's still many societal roles out there and still this vision that the man has to be the breadwinner. And I think a lot of men, you said this before, it's a sign of weakness to say these things. And even when they go on vacation, they still have to be, kind of organizing a lot of it. So I'd love to get your perspective from the male perspective on this, of why do you think we need to be talking about this even more for not only, men of our age, but also our younger generation?
Yeah, it's and I'm glad you want to take this focus, because I got a book coming out later this year called Project Self, and it's really focused now. It's I've got a lot of contributing authors, and it's from all genres. But the male, I just call it silent suffering, because we would rather suffer than reach out for help. Listen, I went through a bout with depression 27 years ago that led to a suicide attempt, all because I didn't want to ask for help, all because it was a sign of weakness, and it was the way that I was raised in the society that I was raised. So as men, it's not. Listen, I have accountability partners now. I have advocates now, and these are people that watch out for my well-being. And I do the same. I do some coaching. I don't charge for my services, but I do some mentoring and some coaching for several men right now. And this is what we talk about. We talk about taking care of yourself. Listen, I'm gonna shock some people. I had my first facial 3 weeks ago, and man, it was fantastic. But I'm telling you what, if my dad's listening to this, because I've had a pedicure, he's gonna say, "Oh my goodness," because he was raised in a certain generation where men just don't do that. But I'm telling you, times have changed. They never should have been that way. You should be free to care for yourself, no different than you care for yourself. So every night I'm making sure I take care of myself. I'm getting the rest. I'm getting to refocus, to recharge, because I do not want to be back where I was 27 years ago, depressed. And I'm just going to say it, lonely, because I didn't think I could talk to anyone. I had surface relationships, but now I have deep relationships. I tell people other than my brothers, I tell my male friends that I love them, because I really do. I care for them. I have committed to spending the rest of my life in helping people, and I love doing it. I work for a few organizations now that allow me to do that, and I'm out in the community. I'm visiting leaders for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm going to their places of employment, and I'm helping them, and I'm trying to make them understand that, have those accountability partners, have those people that you trust. Reach out and ask for help when you need it. Take care of yourself. Get the rest that you need. Take the vacations. Spend time with your family. I mean, in the list, I could go on and on and on. But these are all things that we tell women that they should do. But you're right. We tell men, you're the breadwinner. You're the strong man. You need to be tough. Well, tough doesn't mean being silent.
Exactly.
Okay.
I love that. That is so powerful for all of us. Tough doesn't mean being silent. That's a little hashtag, I think, right there. And so good. Now, you brought something up where, and you kind of even alluded this maybe in your family, sometimes our family is not the place to go. Sometimes it's too close. Sometimes they don't understand. And, I dealt with an eating disorder early on. And for many years, even though my family loved me, I was the girl with the eating disorder. And it's like, if I went someplace and I was like, I'm not really hungry today. Oh my God, she's relapsing. I'm like, no, I'm just not hungry. Sometimes we're just not hungry. And so, I think sometimes searching outside, and you mentioned all these things about community. If somebody really is struggling and they don't feel they have that safety with their family or with their friends, where are maybe some other places they can go to maybe try to find the safety?
This is going to sound crazy, because I only started doing this about a year ago, but use social media in a positive way. Listen, there's a lot of people that are, let's just face it, there's a lot of fake people on social media, but there are a lot of connections that I've made on social media. And some of those people are my best friends now. The ones that are real, the ones that are authentic, those are the ones that you can reach out and make connections to, and do it in your own, I'm not saying go out there and find someone across the country, around the world that you can talk to. I've made some really great connections locally through social media. And then we've gone and met at a Panera Bread or a coffee house and just chatted and gotten to know each other. And now some of those are the strongest connections that I have. It has to be someone that you trust, and it has to be someone that you will allow to ask you those hard questions, to be real with you, to be authentic, and to be raw with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm that way with some of my friends, not with all of them, but the ones that want me to be, I am.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that I allow them to be real with me as well. And I'm gonna say getting a coach is a great thing. I went through my entire career, and it wasn't until I retired recently that I got a coach. And I will tell you, I wish I would have had a coach years ago, because it has done wonders for me. Things that you don't even know about yourself, they have a way of pulling out of you. So it's a fantastic thing to do. So go find a coach, one that you can trust, and then be authentic with them. Be open and be real with them.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that you mentioned early on in the conversation is you said that you made the shift from going after titles and money to really focusing on relationships. And I think that that is so powerful because at the end of the day, we are all craving human connection. And I think that success is in relationships. What are some, outside of having coffees and lunches, what are some ways that you can develop business relationships? And more importantly, how do you turn those relationships into business opportunities?
So most of the time people are afraid to ask questions. I towards the end of my career, the last few years of my career, I had two great mentors, both women, both much more further along in their career than I was. And I just approached them each one day and just said, listen, I want to be real with you. I want to be open with you. Are you willing to allow me to do that? And for me, both of them said yes. And I think you will find that for those that are leaders, and I generally will talk about a servant leader when I say leader. Mm-hmm. A servant leader, someone who puts your needs before them, someone who cares about you, who has your best interest. They're going to want to pour into your life. So my advice is take the first step. And once you take that first step, it's very freeing for you. And you'll see that there are people that really care, that want to help you, want to see you succeed.
Love that. Fantastic. Well, Michael, this has been so enlightening and really powerful. I honor you and appreciate so much that you have taken some dark times and you have turned them into light, not only for you, but for the people that you are connecting with. You can tell that you are taking this concept of contribution and connection and really spreading that, so much further than just outside of your realm. And you are making impact that is lifelong. And I would love to ask you to share, what are some of the things on the horizon for you? What's next for Michael?
Yeah. So first, let me give a shout out because I'm going to give a shout out to Bob Berg. I love Bob Berg. I love the Go Giver series. It changed my life. Mm-hmm. It changed my outlook on how I'm in business development. So it changed how I approach people and build those relationships. And I truly want to add value to everyone I come in contact with and want to be a true partner. So if Bob's listening to this, huge kudos to writing the Go Giver series and everything he does. And he's very approachable on social media. Mm-hmm. And he responds very, so reach out and follow the right people. And I'm serious that people out there want to help you. So I just wanted to say that first. Some of the things on the horizon, I got my book, Project Self, coming out later this year. Again, it's on burnout. It's how to recover from burnout or how to avoid burnout. A lot of good contributing authors, from professional athletes to business leaders to executives to those in the military. So really looking forward to that. That'll be out later this year. Doing some coaching, some speaking. I'm also the market president of C-Suite for Christ here in Charlotte. So that gives me a lot of interaction with business leaders and executives, and an opportunity to meet them where they're at, to add value to them. So yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to make the biggest impact I can in my community right now, and not really worry about titles and money anymore. Because guess what? When you're focusing on adding value to someone and focus on increasing your network, The money, the finance, the rewards, the accolades, it just comes along with it.
Absolutely. Love everything that you just said. And I'm a big fan of Bob Berg. Obviously, he was the first guest that I had to kick off the show. So for those of you following, go back and listen to episode 1 and you'll get to hear about all the 5 laws that Bob Berg brings in. And again, Michael, thank you so much for being so open, so vulnerable, and sharing with us today. One last final question for you before we let you go. Sitting where you sit today, learning everything that you learned, how do you define success for yourself now?
It's about the impact I make on people's lives. Again, and I sound like a broken record. Forget about titles, forget about money. I've moved more to a sales role now. People probably would call me a terrible salesperson because I give a lot away of my time, of my resources, of my services. But I'm telling you what, in the end, it makes me more successful, and I'm extremely blessed in all that I have. So forget about titles, forget about money, focus on the relationship, focus on making an impact and adding value to the people, the customers you're coming in contact with.
Beautiful. Beautiful way to end it. So, Michael, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
I really hope so many of you are taking notes and really listening to this, because too many times we listen to these things and we say, yeah, I get it. I'll deal with it later. You got to deal with it now, because it's not going to go away and it's going to get worse. Michael shared his story, blindness, heart attacks, all of the things. I've shared my story countless times. You know, the reality is you cannot live that way. Eventually it's going to come up and it's going to get you. Health issues, damaged relationships, lost business. Don't get yourself in these things. Some of the things, I love the 4 pillars: rest, recovery, recharge, and recommitting. So powerful to do those things. And I'll tell you that recommitment, that's something I do. You know, I sit down a lot of times when I fall off track, and it's getting back in and doing those things. You know, taking that first step and asking for help and saying, you know what, things aren't going good. If you need help, his suggestion of finding some safe places online, there are some great support groups. And yes, there's a lot of noise that you got to find through, but there are a lot of good people there that are willing to help. So seek those out. Again, a coach, a support group, an accountability partner. But the reality is you do not need to live in burnout. And if you are living in there, there is a way to recover. Sleep, fueling yourself, finding what I love to call 15 minutes of joy. You know, but you're hearing this from someone who was in the thick of it and now has found his way out. And he told you how beautiful it is on the other side, the relationships and being able to build a business that he is proud of, that he loves to do. And it all comes from the heart of connecting and contribution. Those things that we can't do when we are just chasing titles and chasing money. Chase the relationships, chase the fulfillment, chase the connection. Money flows to value. Value comes from relationships. So I hope you enjoyed this. I ask that you share this with at least 5 other people, because whether it's your friend, a family member, a coworker, and maybe somebody else in their circle, people need to hear this. We want to stop the suffering and we want to start the recovery. And it all starts right here, right now. And you have the power to impact lives. So take this for yourself, take this for others. Make sure that you like, follow, share the show. I'm Clara Capano, and this has been another episode of Clarity in Action.